Our last speaker of the conference is Helēna DEMAKOVA, Latvian art historian and exhibition curator of contemporary art. And the title of her paper is Mapping the Content of the Collection of the Future Latvian Contemporary Art Museum. Problems of the Future Theoretical Evaluation. Please.
Good afternoon. This paper will focus on the problems that will affect and has already affected the intellectual work involving the collection of the future Museum of Contemporary Art. Although the collection is big enough, its theoretical evaluation is not. In my introduction, I wish to briefly reflect on the history of the formation of the collection, which our Estonian and Lithuanian colleagues must definitely don't know about. So I had to apologize to Latvians who are minority here. So all facts and figures are known to my Latvian colleagues, but as I suggest, not to our friends from abroad. Unlike in Estonia and Lithuania, which are home to Kumu and the Lithuanian National Gallery of Art, respectively, both of which have extensive and multifaceted collections, in Latvia, a decision was made at governmental level over a decade ago to exclusively focus on establishing a museum of contemporary art in the sense widely accepted in international, that is, Western art circles. Back then, nothing yet indicated the onset of a global crisis. Work on the Museum of Contemporary Art began in 2005, when the well-known architect Teterev was approached under the auspices of public-private partnership. Unfortunately, the crisis of 2008 and 2009 precluded the fulfillment of the dream of a project conceived by Remkolhas at Andresala, which is the district in Riga, not far from the center. However, this project did yield a major intellectual benefit and intangible cultural legacy in the form of a detailed conceptual design and layout drawn up by Kolhas. This preparatory work proved to be invaluable when it came to organizing the International Architecture Competition in 2016, it means this year. How did Latvia arrive at the architecture competition? In late 2014, a memorandum of intent was signed between the Ministry of Culture of the Republic of Latvia, the ABLV Bank, and the Boris and Inara Teterev Foundation regarding the construction of the Latvian Museum of Contemporary Art in Riga. It means 2 years ago. The museum was opened to the public in 2021. In the summer of 2016, the embryonic museum acquired more concrete features when the international competition for the design concept was won by the British architecture firm Ajaya Associates. The physical building for the museum will be fully built with private money, but even so, the Ministry of Culture is an important partner in the process. However, preparations for the content of the new museum have been underway for over a decade, precisely 11 years. In other words, a collection has been built. Back in 2005, the first serious contract on the path to the future museum was signed between the Ministry of Culture and the ABLV Bank regarding the formation of a collection. Under this contract, the bank undertook to invest at last 1 million lats, it's more than 1 million euros, in building the collection. In that year, the Ministry of Culture established a commission of international experts that has been working, as I said, for 11 years now. The commission is comprised by Sirje Helme from Estonia, Raminta Jurenaite from Lithuania, Leonid Bazhanov from Russia, Norbert Weber from Germany, and Mara Lace, Leonard Slaganovskis, Raitis Schmitz, Eva Stachovska, and myself. This commission recommended works of art to be acquired for the collection of both the bank as well as that of the state, which at that time was administered by a single state agency. The collection was built with the intention that when the museum was eventually built, both collections would be housed under one roof, forming a quality panorama of art. When the respective agency was liquidated in 2009, the Ministry of Culture placed the part of the future museum's collection belonging to the state under the care of the Latvian National Art Museum. In regard to the collection, the International Commission of Experts decided that works of art would be acquired or accepted as gifts starting from a specific creative era onwards. The era chosen was the 60s, when the entire body of products of world art, which then first began to be referred to as contemporary, was influenced by global conceptual movements, placing an emphasis on the idea of the work of art. The written guidelines for the work of the Commission of Experts were drawn up in 2005 by Eva Astachowska. It was decided to build the collection by concentrating on art from the Baltic Sea region. Thus, the experts on the International Commission came from countries around the Baltic Sea. In 2015, when a detailed written concept was drawn up for the future museum in preparation for the international architectural competition, the focus on the Baltic Sea region in the operations of the future museum was reinforced. Currently, the state's part of the collection is comprised of 2,067 works of art by 70 artists from Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Russia, Finland, and Croatia. The ABLV Bank owns almost as many works of art that they total at least 500 works, which is a large number for a museum that hasn't been built yet. A major expansion of the state-owned collection was made possible by the so-called Norwegian financial instrument that is funding, which in accordance with the agreement with the European Union, the Norwegian state does not deposit into the overall budget, but instead allocates to various programs run by new European Union countries. Thus, the program, Soviet period nonconformist art heritage, received funding worth several €100,000. This money was also used to buy Lithuanian and Estonian art. Parts of the collection of the future Latvian Contemporary Art Museum have been exhibited on several occasions. Currently, the Latvian Railway History Museum is hosting an exhibition, Light at the End of the Cable, Latvian Art in the Digital Era, which showcases a collection of works from the state-owned part of the future Museum of Contemporary Art. I just put the catalogs, which are also in color, for those who are interested, and if you have time, dear colleagues from abroad, you're welcome to visit the Railway History Museum today. The works owned by the ABLV Bank and those in the state collection have been created using various media. The aforementioned exhibition showcased paintings, graphics, videos, and video installations, sculpture objects, and photographs. It would seem only logical that the works of art should be catalogued and described, creating a publicly accessible database. In my opinion, the ideal version would be based on the example of MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York, whose homepage contains detailed information about the work of art and the artist responsible, as well as on the relevant genre or movement of art to which the artwork belongs. Of course, one could also choose the Tate Modern version, where the homepage contains a comprehensive glossary of art, arranged in alphabetic order, which offers all possible directions of modern and contemporary art. Copyright problems arising from the use of images can be resolved in the manner of the Latvian National Museum of Art's browser, meanders.lv. containing small images and suitable for publication. When the collection of the future museum becomes very large, a task like this cannot be done in a small country. Understandably, our Museum of National Art has declined to undertake it because Meanders contains only basic information about this specific work of art. The Lithuanian side has also decided not to undertake this job, while as far as the Estonian side is concerned, the digitalization and information are incomplete. However, the problem is not digitalization. Instead, it lies in the theoretical grasp of art. I will proceed to outline the problematic areas which we are bound to encounter in future. The history of Latvian contemporary art hasn't been written. A general history of Latvian art will be written, but the criterion of contemporaneity is a different matter. If in the huge country of France, Catherine Millet can write a history of French contemporary art, Histoire d'art contemporain, if several such examples exist in Germany, such as Thomas Schmidt-Wolfen's book, and given Brandon Taylor's 1995 monograph on the last decades in contemporary art, the question arises, why can't this be done in Latvia? You might object that one first needs to clarify the concept of contemporaneity. This, I would suggest, is a hopeless endeavor, particularly so if it is pointless for part of the art scene. Contemporary art is that which one finds in a museum of contemporary art, or in the future Museum of Contemporary Art. Moreover, the art one found there has been selected by experts after exhaustive and rigorous discussions. In Latvia's case, despite Soviet censorship, the museum collection starts, as I mentioned before, with the 60s. The experts' rationale for these decisions was that many artists who began their careers in the 60s continued working and are still active today. In turn, the emphasis to date on Latvian art was dictated, firstly, by the wishes of benefactors, and secondly, because until now, no other Latvian state museum collection has contained large format installations and video works by Latvian artists. Putting the concept of contemporaneity to one side, problems arise with other concepts, which art history is gradually coming to terms with. These problems stem from the lack of monographic publications about individual masters of Latvian contemporary art, which often results in confusion. No books or monographic works on contemporary art exist to rival the quality of the meditation of Edward Skļaviņš and Christian ABLV on the art of the early 20th century, or that of the studies conducted by Dace Lamberga or Jānis Kalnečs. Studies Biblioteka, Studio Library, the series of publications on contemporary artists working today, published by the outstanding Latvian publisher Neputns, doesn't solve the problem. Each book contains only one author's sheet of text. It means approximately 20 pages. These are hurried and lack genuine verification, nor do the numerous artist catalogues qualify as comprehensive texts. They are albums with introductions. The lack of monographs makes it hard to understand the conceptual nucleus of works by individual artists. But it is this conceptual nucleus that indicates whether a work of art can be considered to be contemporary. One could simply say that postmodern art is being collected for the future museum, but this term too is not suitable in all cases. I experienced this myself while writing an exhaustive, huge monograph about the painter Bruno Vasilevskis, which I completed a year ago and which is now in the production process. This painting of the corner of a house in Kurzeme is in the future museum's state-owned collection. Having studied the artist's entire oeuvre and his beliefs, the usage of the term socialist postmodernism or soc-postmodernism becomes problematic in regard to this master. In the past decade or so, this term has emerged within art history in relation to some of the art produced during the Soviet era. It is interpreted as opposition to soc-modernism. The definition of the term stems from the stylistic and ostensible parallels of the relevant works of art with early Western postmodernism. Although Professor Eduard Skļaviņš has categorized artists from the so-called French group of the 60s among the soc-postmodernists, Bruno Vasilevskis doesn't fit into this category according to any theoretical criteria. This is confirmed by his friend and contemporary Imants Landsmanis, whose own oeuvre and that of another French group artist Maija Tabaka can, however, justifiably be described using this term. Bruno Vasilevskis, who died at the age of 52 in the year 90, was a dogmatic conceptualist to whom everything we associate with postmodern theories was alien. I underline everything. He hated situationism, relativism, and deconstruction. He believed in truth. It's unimaginable, the notion truth in any postmodern theory. So he believed in truth and in the meta level. He mocked quotes and irony in art. So, as his friend and contemporary philosopher Andris Rubens confirms, he was a Platonist. As a painter of light and space, he managed to depict the dematerialization of the existing world in order to approach the Platonic world of ideas. These last three works are not from the Future Museum, but I wanted to indicate that ongoing slides would contain this abbreviation, which means that this is from the collection of the Future Contemporary Art Museum. So, those three last works by Bruno Vasilevskis are not from the Future Museum, but from other collections. Here we come to the problems of the periodization of Western contemporary art, because I belong among a handful of those who believe the conceptual mystics like Mark Rothko, who also believed in truth, would be categorized as belonging to contemporary instead of modern art. For example, one of the greats of contemporary art, Richard Serra, believed that Jackson Pollock was a representative of contemporary and not modern art. During the Soviet era, the metaphysical worldview whose influence partly emanated from Russia was widespread. Studying it allows one to distinguish like an artist, Slavophile, like Bruno Vasilevskis, from the members of so-called French groups, so it means that he was not only Francophile but also Slavophile, of that era, because unlike them, he was a solver of philosophic and artistic tasks for whom an affiliation with postmodernism was impossible. However, categorizing Mark Rothko, Bill Viola, and other modern artists, metaphysicians, under the auspices of contemporary art demonstrates its broad scope. It doesn't just contain stylistic and thematic, but also philosophical and conceptual works of art. It is this diverse range of art that prompts one to consider the theoretical view of the last 5 years in Latvian art as too narrow, as evidenced in art historian Ievas Kalniņas introduction to the almanac of the works of all the nominees for the biggest award in Latvian art, the Purvītis Prize. In her view, the latest Latvian arts products can be divided into neo-conceptualism, reportage art, and formalism. By the way of comparison, in the collection of articles edited by Center of Contemporary Art in Vilnius, in 2010 the collection of articles entitled Lithuanian Art 2000 till 2010. The intellectually more mobile Lithuanian art scene lists the main themes of its contemporary art, of which there are more. These are appropriation, collaboration, documentary, fictions, and institutional critique. Moreover, among other things, the recent intellectual German publication, Theorien der Gegenwartskunst, or Theories of Contemporary Art, published by Junius and written by Juliana Rebentisch, covers the dialectics of nature and culture and continuation of land art, as well as work involving visual culture and other contemporary art themes. Thus, a second problem for future research arises here, which is related to the inadequate intellectual work being done today. The problem relates to naming contemporary art themes for at least those works that are in the collection, bearing in mind that there are more than 3 of them. There are at least as many as in the after-mentioned Tate Modern Art Glossary. The artist Inta Ruka, on a level where her photographs have won big international recognitions, cannot be categorized under formalism, reportage, or neo-conceptualism. She too has been among the nominees for the Purvītis Prize and features in its almanac. Inta Ruka's works are in the ABLV Bank's collection for the Future Museum. She continues to work actively, and hers is the language of subjective documentalism. Another work by her. In turn, Agnes Balčū's series of photographs, Amnesia, several works of which are in the ABLV Bank's collection, are neither reportage nor neo-conceptualism, let alone formalism. This is staged photography with a social slant directed at everyday post-Soviet archaeology and its disappearing work with memory. Artist Leonard Laganovskis is working actively and has continually exhibited his works since the late 80s. Several of his works can be found in the state-owned part of the museum collection, of the Future Museum's collection. And one of his lines of art continues to be soc art, which he began back in 80s, well, similarly to his Russian colleagues. While Warhol's ready-mades were photographs of widely recognizable icons in the USA, should they be goods, people, or other phenomena, the influence of pop art continues to manifest itself in the art of Laganovskis and other such artists, using the attributes of Soviet ideology at their ready-mades. No young student even knows how to decipher these works by Laganovskis anymore. These works demand extensive explanation. I'm not talking about that students don't understand Russian anymore, but like notions like KVN, which was a popular piece of television transmission, and other notions, it's completely hidden. The meaning is completely hidden for them. It's a series of several works. My son, when he was 8, he asked, what does it mean, CCCP? Like TASS, even if somebody knows what is KGB, they don't know what is TASS, which was very popular, a Soviet news agency, and so on. Another work of his showing the everything in his biography from his kindergarten till the cemetery is always mentioning the first department in each place, like first department in cemetery, first the department in kindergarten, in the school, in art academy, young people don't know what was the first department. It was the place where KGB person was situated, and every state institution contained such first department. In some cases it was like Kadru Dalja, but it was like the place for professions, but mostly it was the first department, and the collection in such way needs very extensive explanation. Laganovskis is not the only representative of soc art in Latvia to be represented in the collection of the Future Museum, as well as that of the Latvian National Museum of Art. Also represented through several of his series is the late Vilnis Zābers, whose screen prints feature his father's amateur photographs from the 50s of new Soviet construction work in the vicinity of Lubāna. The artist created these works for the 92 exhibition, Quality 92, wryly commenting that we have a political exhibition. Soc art motifs continue in the range of artistic subjects chosen by Andris Breže. This not only applies to his work from 1998, which we see right now, which are included in the collection of the Future Museum, but also to many of his work produced during the past 4 years. The impressions of Soviet life have continued to manifest themselves over the years, and I slightly disagree with my colleague Eva Stachovska's contention in the volume of articles entitled Translating References that one rarely encounters. No, it was the different title. How was it?
Revisiting footnotes?
Yeah, revisiting footnotes. That one rarely encounters exploration of this theme. As a major exception, Eva cites Ilmars Blumberg's extensive series of paintings, Logi Windows, in which he takes his childhood and army years in Siberia as this subject. After lengthy debates, this series was rejected for the Future Contemporary Art Museum by the majority of the International Commission, experts as being too formalistic. It must be said that I did recommend this series, but also that a view from outside is an extremely blessed experience. In the 90s, many allusions to Soviet ideology appeared not only in the artworks of Breže, Laganovskis, or Zābers, but also in the art of Oleg Stilberg, the artist group LPSRZ, Hardis Ledinj, and other masters. Even Eva Iltner's 1994 series of paintings, School, takes the Soviet experience as its subject. This is research worthy a monograph in order to help one to ensure accurate future interpretation of the works of the planned museum. The third set of problems relates to the understanding of post-Soviet narratives in the future, because even now, let alone in the future, many works from the prospective museum cannot be interpreted without a detailed understanding of their context. For example, Ernest Skļaviņ's large format work Riga Rings Out to demonstrate the artist's relations with the ultranationalist environment, which came to the fore in the Chamber of Riga City Council during the 90s. In his early youth, the artist has been the curator of an exhibition, Ulmanis in Our Hearts, that was a soft dictator of 30s in Latvia, which proved to be highly controversial among the middle class and even provoked a demonstration by nationalists outside the Art Academy. It is clear that his characters in the painting are hypertrophied and ironic, but bearing in mind the public mood at that time, it is a work that could be interpreted in a different light in future. One must also recognize the presidents of all 3 Baltic states from the 90s, who are haunted by an alien in a cycle of several paintings by Miķelis Fišers. So, the artist's own explanation is insufficient here, because the broader international political context imposes its own interpretations. The Future Museum's collection also contains Mindaugas Navakas Vilnius notebooks. It is a pity that this is not mentioned in the wonderful book about the artist, which was recently published by the Lithuanian National Gallery of Art. Nor does it mention that the notebooks were exhibited at our National Museum of Art when it hosted another exhibition of works from the collection of the Future Museum in 2012. It is hard for the younger generation to understand the time which produced Mindaugas phantasmagoric and gigantic outdoor sculpture proposals for Vilnius. To do so, one must know about the former official monumental art program and of the period to understand how the artist tried to decontaminate large forms compromised by ideological pollution. As the local narratives, Maja Skurševa's My Friday, which is also in the Future Museum, is quite a narrowly contextual work with a clear narrative. It was created during a period when Andrei Sala already mentioned the district in Riga, in anticipation of the Future Museum of Contemporary Art, had newly become popular as a place where artists could meet up and work while encountering the most diverse alternative subcultures. The artist has stressed that back then she was renting a studio in Andrei Sala, where she regularly used alcohol in large quantities and messed about with the neighborhood's full-time tramps. The video included in the installation showed the artist becoming sick from the use of alcohol. Her fictional and desperate green character, Janis, wanders from work to work, assuming various guises and sculptures and graphic work. So it needs very extensive explanation. Kaspar Podniek's oeuvre is similarly interwoven with local narratives related to his native Drusti, where his parents own a small dairy farm. In both his 2003 work, which has been acquired for the Future Museum, and his 2015 work, which the international experts recommended for the museum, one can see his family cows. This is a common and the only common feature of other works by him. Of course, the collection also contains work that can be fully understood without knowing the Latvian context, including Rich Salman's, Ojārs Petersons, Andris Breža, Leonards Laganovskis, Oleg Stilbergs, Sarmīt Māliņa, and other leading lights. Thank you for attention.